can't hear you, Ben. Now we can't see you, Ben.
You can't see me? You can hear me? Yes, you can.
I can see you and hear you.
You're pulling my leg. Look at that. You're so funny, Sam. It's awesome to have you on here. So,
I'm having
Sam,
an echo.
sound check, please. Say something coherent and intelligent. Okay, there's no chance of that.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
say
talking,
something.
but I can hear an echo on my end.
That's just me testing.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we're good. And Jason, can we hear you?
GameDev.tv rocks.
Oh, look at that. That's the perfect thing to say.
Didn't even pay him to say that.
Didn't even pay him. And XML, can we hear you? We have tonight. We have Sam, Ben, Jason, XML, and YAML all on the line.
Ha ha.
I'm making markup language jokes. Okay, I think that we are there. So awesome to have you here. Jason is our first tier 3 subscriber. And remind everybody, Jason, what your Twitch handle is so that they know who they're actually seeing.
I am TerraVice.
TerraVice, awesome. Thanks very much, TerraVice, for being here. So there should be a big stream
tonight.
Can you
switch off the echo?
People on. You still got an echo, have you?
Yep.
Okay, stand by 1 second. We will arrange for you to not have an echo with any luck. It's not. I say, Jason's on headset. Sam's on headset. I can't hear an echo.
You're not on headset, so it's probably your side.
I'm not.
Are you getting
any
one,
echo.
Jason?
I'm sorry, say that again. I heard my name.
Are you getting an echo, Jason, of any sort?
I am not. I was in the very beginning, but no longer.
Okay, and there's people watching the stream getting an echo of any sort? It might just be you, Sam.
It's just me then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think I know what it is. Never mind.
You good?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, we're all good. Negative audio is good, no echo from Avi NL, and who I'm no longer calling Anvil because that would be rude. So let's dive straight into this code review. Guys, the idea is that Jason is going to show us one of his code files that he has not sanitized and prepared specially for this. Have you, Jason?
No, not at all.
Eyes wonder. And we are going to do our best to give him some coherent feedback and not to drool, dribble, or otherwise be incoherent in our responses. So go for it, Jason. Share your screen. Let's see your code. Let's see your game. Give us an overview of the game and then what this file's doing, and then we'll do our best to impart value.
Great. Sounds good. So I wanted to step back to basics. I know all of the live streams basically lately have been involving the next step of the RPG. But I wanted to jump back onto a simple project, so I kind of whipped this together. Basically, I wanted to go for a Z-targeting kind of Ocarina of Time feel with this. And I struggled for a while trying to figure out if I wanted you to review the camera controller or player movement. But I landed on player movement. And I guess if I just show it to you real quick.
Yeah, awesome. Love to see the game.
So we've got kind of a joystick feel to it with that tag player direction. And we got some zoom. And we've got a cam target that is idle following the head at the moment. But when you turn on the Z targeting, it will attach to the closest target and the camera will run a look at to the cam target.
Those things are super creepy. What are they going to be called in the game?
Monsters.
Monsters. That'll do. Monsters is.
Haven't quite got that yet.
Okay, cool.
And the grid.
That's
Tell us a
very
little
cool.
bit about this grid. That grid looks kind of funky.
Oh, that grid was just to. I come from an artist background. I've mostly done my own models, and the grid itself is used for like when you unwrap UVWs to make sure you have no distortion. So it's just kind of breaking up the white space of that plane there, so we can see where
so you can see how fast you're moving and
see
stuff
movement
like that.
and all that. Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool.
Wonderful. Okay, so which code file have you decided for us to dissect?
I'm going to go with the movement just because it's more put together. The camera controller, I was struggling. I have a lot more questions on how to do it. But player movement is more like, let's review the code and see how it actually looks, the structure, and if you have any input on other directions that I should have gone.
Okay, so if you just scroll over the whole class to start with, just get the jigsaw style. Let's just get the big picture.
Sure. So we have in our update, we have a movement update and we have a check interest targets update. And then if we look at our movement update, we've got 3 methods here. We've got the player direction update, we've got our facing update, and we've got our move. And that's just basically to have, trying to figure out which direction to go in and then also turn towards that direction and move towards that direction through a lerp. We'll see that.
We're getting a good suggestion here is that you paste bin this class or gist or something this class. Could you just Control A, Control C, whatever, you copy this and stick it into paste bin or gist?
Sure. The whole thing?
Yeah, I'd say the whole class. Okay. And then do a gist or a paste bin. And then paste that in the chat if you don't mind. And that means that we can have more brains on the job of looking at it, questioning it, etc. So, by the way, for those watching the stream, we're going to be reviewing this code for about... it depends whether a second person dives into this Zoom room, which they're totally entitled to. Another tier 3 sub is entitled to dive in at past. But if they don't, we'll spend a little bit longer with Jason, probably a total of 40 minutes with Jason, and then we'll go into a Q&A, just FYI. Yep. If you just syntax highlight that as C# for us, and then share it, it'd be awesome. Or syntax highlight it as a different language. That'd be funny. That'll confuse them.
Please don't.
That would upset Sam. Awesome.
I think my head might ache a little bit.
You're quite fun watching
Having to unsyntax highlight and resyntax highlight in your brain is not fun.
Well, think about the number of clips you'd get if somebody's head actually exploded in the on the stream live.
Oh yeah. Has anyone got the GIF available? I guess that's not very.
No, that's not very nice. Oh, by the way, people clip things. If in the unlikely event of an accident, the accident being that either Sam, myself, or Jason say something intelligent or useful, then hit your clip button and share it with the community.
I need a dragon puppet.
You need a dragon puppet, like Jan, you mean? All right, yes. Awesome. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you very much for Male Ninja Max, who said. Mall Ninja Max said paste bin it, so we did. Your request is our command, whatever. Okay, cool. So let's see more about this class.
Okay, so let's see.
So it's player movement 2, because it's your second stab at it, I'm guessing.
Yes, it is. I could show you that one, but it's nasty. Let's not look at it. Okay. Let's see. So from there, we went to a P direction update through inside the movement update method. And we're taking our horizontal and vertical axis input, and we're throwing that into a max radial distance. And this is basically just moving this player direction empty game object here around kind of I guess, mimicking a joystick movement where it's got its central axis position set to the player. And whenever you move it around, it moves it around on the X and Y axis around.
Okay, Jason. Radius. So have you got the project in its current state under version control so we can start actually you can start refactoring it live? Are you good to? Are you okay?
Yes.
Have you got a version control?
I just committed today before the meeting.
Because there's no chance that we're going to damage your code, but just in case. Okay, so I think the first thing to start kind of chopping into this would be let's go back to the code. And to make it more readable for those on the stream, and as the first piece of feedback, I would say that this direction update method is doing too much to be easy to read for an idiot like me. It's very useful being an idiot because then I know what's difficult to understand. And most things are difficult to understand for me. So I would suggest if you try the extract tool on that, for example, then see what happens. See if you can extract that and the thing that's in the else into other methods that are well named so that we can start to see the whole of this method, the P direction update, on one screen. Now, if it won't extract nicely, then that's a sign that maybe the architecture's wanting, but it is extracting nicely. It's not suggesting out parameters or anything weird, so that's cool. So what is this doing exactly under that condition?
So this is moving back towards the player's position. This is taking the P direction and moving it back towards the player. What I have in here is I have a vector3.move towards on the actual player itself set on, it's a cutoff on a minimal float and a max float.
But this is the player movement script.
Correct.
So what's moving back towards the player if this is controlling the player movement?
The player direction. And if you look at this green tag and the Unity file itself is this player direction. And when we play it, I'll show you what it's doing.
So yeah, show us what happens in that top F condition.
When I'm doing vertical, it's moving this. Let's see. Let's bring it to the player. It's moving forward and backwards and left and right. It's kind of dragging out so that there's a smooth movement for the character to go around. And it's set up based off the axis of the camera, the direction the camera's facing. So it's the local space for the camera, as opposed to if I'm hitting D, then I'm going world space right. Instead, I'm going camera space right.
So you're converting from the camera space to world space.
From world space to camera space, correct.
Mm-hmm.
So your controls are camera space relative, are they?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you say the best method name is there then for what happens under the condition that there's no horizontal or vertical input? What actually happens? What's it?
Reset. So this drags it. Like if my input is 0, and if my input is 0 altogether, horizontal and vertical, then it brings the p-direction back, not to the center, because if I bring it to the center, then my player transform turns around.
Okay, we'll roll with that for now. I think we can maybe improve the naming further, but let's go with that. That's cool. That's and then what does this lump do?
This is the opposite. Whenever there's input, then it's moving in the correct direction.
Okay, so let's try extracting and giving that a name that makes sense.
And are you saying it's kind of smooth lerping the direction of movement?
Correct. I hit rename instead of refactor.
That's okay. Well done doing it live, by the way.
Oh, I didn't rename my other one either.
That's okay. Take your time. Give it a second. I'll check the chat while you just carefully just get that working. That's cool. Okay, so 115 people live, by the way. Thank you very much.
I think you might need to hit apply. Yes, that makes sense.
For being here, everybody. That is just awesome.
Yeah, nice numbers.
Cool. Yes, awesome. So, p-direction reset. I would question this p-direction prefix, by the way, whether that's adding any value or whether you may be worth having a second word like lerp or slurp or smoothly move. It's too long, but smoothly move toward, smoothly reset position or smooth camera reset or something like that,
Sure.
The p-direction is not really adding any value when if you prefix everything with p-direction, it suggests that you don't need p-direction anymore.
Okay.
It's not everything though, is it? I think it's just
dealing with the actual empty game object player direction.
Yeah. So that's okay for now. I mean, P makes you think player, but it's your code. That's good. Let's just, this is good enough. Now
Take it to the next step.
Yeah, take it to the next step. Exactly. Let's go broad strokes, over it and over it. More like, better to review your code like a progressive JPEG than a line-by-line JPEG. Remember on the web when it was really slow, that used to load blocky, dig, rather than line-by-line. If we go through line-by-line, we need to do that eventually, but we don't want to miss the huge issues. So it's like, let's do the blurry zoom out, look at it first, and then zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, because otherwise you can end up with the most tiny minutiae, which people are saying, why are you prefixing some things with underscore? Probably because they're instance variables. Why is your class name in a lowercase more of a concern? Yeah, sure. There's all these things, but
no naming conventions.
Yeah, but is this the biggest issue? Maybe not. Maybe it's not the biggest thing preventing us as a lot from understanding how it works, right? Anything else from you, Sam, on this little bit?
No, not at the moment.
The other thing I would ask is when you do a refactor and the tool comes out and does this and gives you these two parameters, I would ask, do they make sense? They may well do, but do you need to know what local right and local forward are in order to move? Or is local right easily determined from local forward because it's 90 degrees to it, for example?
Good questions.
So probably if local right and local forward are always at perpendicular, then you don't need to pass both as parameters, and it would be clearer not to pass both. You'd pass one and derive the other. So I probably wouldn't do this during the stream, but if that's valid feedback, I would say put a comment somewhere, probably on here, to say, consider passing one, because you don't think you need both. And you see how the extract has actually helped bring out that possibility that there's more stuff going on there than you need to. Okay, cool. That's good. That's nice. Okay, can we scroll back up to the top again?
Sure.
And see what the public, let's see what so have you seen my funny little MB header thing? Can I get that to you? You know what I should do? People talk about gisting. I'll go and gist something. Sam, have a chat for a second. I'll just gist something myself.
So I'm interested in personally, my slant on this would be, what's the state of this class? So we've got a bunch of references and we've got a bunch of config with the serialized fields. Do you have any objects that kind of store state?
No, I do not currently.
So basically the state at the moment is being stored in perhaps the some of the game objects that are referenced here, such as the p direction, for example, was one thing that was, by having its state point, having its direction pointing a certain way. That was one thing, wasn't it?
It is set up. Let's see.
Yeah, that would be really good to have a little overview of the game object setup.
Oh my, where is it? There it is. Took a little while to react there.
So we've got a player root game object. Under that, we've got the cam target. What does the cam target actually consist of? Is it the arrow?
It is this yellow empty game object here.
Okay, so it's just got the label. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is getting placed where exactly? It gets placed
just ahead of the actual the geometry representing the player itself, and it's going to stay there while Z targeting is false. When a player hits a key, I guess Z on the keyboard, then the cam target will jump to the nearest enemy that meets certain qualifiers, such as if they're visible, if they're in range, etc. And when that jumps to that target, then the camera will reposition behind the player. It'll sort of set up a linear progression of like, here's the camera, here's the player, here's the target, and it will be using the player as the center pivot point as it locates that camera target.
Got it. Cool. So, so it doesn't really matter where that is at the moment. We've got the setup of the player itself, and where's the player direction?
So the player direction is it is actually underneath the camera. And the reason this is set that way is because instead of trying to find a local space and rotation and doing all sorts of quaternions and Euler angles, I just use it as a child of the camera and then set the Y and the X rotation to 0.
Awesome lesson in there, by the way, is if you get your armature set up properly with rotations, by armature, I mean, like, well, this thing, this microphone stand's got a whole bunch of different, like, joints and stuff on it. The first thing with things that rotate relative to each other is just get the pivots set up properly, and it just makes life a million times easier. You can do everything in local space, and it's just easier. Cool. Well, good job on that, by the way. Cool. Jason, I have, to help with what Sam is trying to eke out from you, I've put a gist on the chat. If you go grab that gist and copy the comments, I've got a set of comments that I now use as a structure for the top of a monobehavior file that will help us answer some questions. If you just paste those comments into your code, it'll help us go through and ask questions like Sam has started to ask, like what at the top of your file is class state, instance variables, what are references, cached references, and why are we caching references? What is configuration parameters, and could they be out in a scriptable object? Is that appropriate? Probably not with a single player, and so on. So if you slam that in somewhere, yeah, that sort of stuff. Cool. All right. So it'd be nice to try and think about which of those 4 buckets all this falls into. So shall I spend 30 seconds explaining it a bit more than it is there? Is that all right, Sam? Is this derailing you?
No, that's fine.
You sure? He'll give me a funny look if it is.
Yeah, will do.
Gives me an angry look or an angry text. So number 1, configuration parameters. I put that first just because it kind of says, how does this class work from a parameter point of view? So this particular player instance, they're typically serialized fields. How are we specializing this player instance or this enemy or whatever? What are the parameters? How fast does it move? How big is it? What color is it? That type of stuff. If you've got a lot of serialized fields at the top of a class, because we wouldn't use public, would we? That'd be naughty. If we've got a lot of serialized fields in a block at the top of a class, 1, 2, 3 in these square brackets, you might want to ask whether that lot as a whole might want to go off to a Unity scriptable object, to a pure data class. Not so useful if you only have one player, because you're not having to specialize that player multiple times. If you've got 20 different enemies and they all have different parameter sets, good to get that data out of here off to a scriptable object. So then all you serialize is the scriptable object, and then all that data goes over there. So that's one consideration. Parameters. How does this particular instance work when it instantiates? How does it come alive? What color is it? What, etc. Private instance variables to state. Sam will spend some time with you on that. He's very keen on that. We're both very keen that the state of the class is the thing that tells you how it can differ after it's instantiated. This state or instance variables, that tells you how it can differ during its lifetime, and that's really quite important, that we have as much state as necessary, but as little as possible.
I mean, almost all the complexity comes from state, basically.
Yeah. Don't let him carry on, because he'll start talking about Haskell in a minute. Number 3, which is a purely functional programming language that I think you're getting quite excited me even saying the word, aren't you, Sam? Haskell. Nice. He's not biting.
I'm just thinking it's been a very long time since I actually programmed anything in Haskell. Yeah.
So that's that. And then the third thing is cached references for readability, where we do things like find ourself this, public game object to public. Oof, we'll talk about that in a minute. But game object array interest target. These things and game object target, all these things are cached references. They are a reference to something that you go and find at some point and you stick in an instance variable, but it then becomes state of the class. And you really want to ask, does that need to be state? Or could I go find that thing, take the tiny performance penalty of finding that thing just before I need it, and then dealing with the fact I might not be able to find it? Because the thing about putting it in state is that you go find it at start, but could it not be there? Could it change? Could you? So those sort of quality questions. And then the last comment is about methods. And it's just saying, well, if you're going to list your methods in some order, the order we tend to do it in, or I tend to do it in, is messages first, i.e. the starts and the updates and the on collision enters, and all the methods that could be called by the engine on your code at any point. You're not kind of totally out of control of it. So it feels like they should go first. And then public methods, because that's the interface of the class. Where are you going to call your own code? And then the lowly private methods down the bottom. Sure, that's where all the hard work and the algorithms and the are, but that is the implementation details of how this thing gets its job done. So there you go. That's the overview.
Would you put fixed update at the bottom, or would you leave that at the top as well?
I would leave update and fixed update and all of that stuff personally at the top, because it is going to be called, your code is going to be called by the engine, Unity call it a message for whatever reason, on every frame. And it's pretty much totally out of control of when that call comes. It's totally predictable, but you're not making the method call. So if it's going to mutate the state of your class, it's going to do it, and you kind of can't do anything about it. So I think it's the most imposing thing on your code. That's why I tend to put it first. And you're least in control of it.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Sam will help you combobulate it towards that. Simple.
Good luck. I didn't do any of that.
No. So I think that's fairly straightforward. You can work towards that. That's order and so on. But I think the ideas we can still eke out in terms of differentiating between what is reference, what is state, and here we've actually noticed there's not really any state as such. What's going on is that all the state is being stored in other components, and the components that you talk to. So the player, the direction arrow, the camera, and so on. Is there a reason you've chosen to go that way instead of, say, having having a rotation, a quaternion object on your player movement, for example, having the state just reside here on the class?
The reason would be lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. Because I kind of think like it could be that you'd have fewer dependencies doing it that way. So when you set up a player, you currently have to drop your player movement onto the player and then connect up this transform to a P direction, a camera, a direction arrow, all those objects. You have to make sure they're there in order for this component to work. And if you could make the component more self-contained or at least self-sufficient, it could be easier for you to, I don't know how much, whether you've had any issues with things being disconnected and being like, oh gosh, why is this not working? And it will be just slightly easier in terms of understanding how your class will behave in different states. That what are its different states? So I'm just still trying to understand completely how it's working. So what's important about the P direction transform? So this is another question. Is because it's a transform, it does three things. It does rotation, scale, and position, but and also hierarchy. So which of those four things is important to the P direction? Position. So it's the offset from the camera. How does it help?
So if you double click on _P direction, Jason, then it will highlight all instances of that down your class. If we then go down and see where you use that, it will help us to see how you're using it. And I think what Sam might be working towards is maybe you don't need a transform. Maybe you can have the more specific vector 3, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
if I know him well enough. So 2 questions about an instance variable like this. I would say, firstly, if it's a valid instance variable, it should probably appear in multiple methods. If it doesn't appear in multiple methods, it's probably not a great instance variable. It's probably maybe a parameter. Parameters can appear in just one place, but instance variables really would normally come out of you taking them. They come about because you need to share state between multiple methods. So it seems to be only these 2 guys, move and reset.
There's a third.
What's the third?
Facing update.
Oh, there's a third down
Facing
there.
update, move.
And P move, yeah. So it's very much, I think, a good candidate to be across multiple.
Where'd it go?
It is, and somewhere down here, can't see it on your screen, Jason, but somewhere you should actually be able to see where all of these things are in this sidebar, but it's just, I can't quite see. Maybe it's just those green blobs.
Oh.
Probably is the green blobs. Just train your eye to what's going on down that sidebar, I guess is what I'm saying. There's a lot of richness and information there. But I can't 100% see whether that's it.
I think it probably is the green blobs.
What's that, Sam?
I think it probably is the green blobs.
Just double click on animation or something, that comment, just to see if they disappear. Or
no,
that's not really going to help much.
Green blobs. And there's some settings that allow you to set this, but you can get to the point where what you're highlighting is shown throughout the class, and somebody in the chat's probably going to school us with a K on how to do that. So, sorry, Sam, you were saying. So you were questioning whether we needed to be.
So we are using the position all the time. So that's one point. It could definitely be a vector. The other question is, who else needs to know about this? Is it only this class that needs to know about the P direction?
Yes, just the player.
Yeah, so this would definitely be a candidate to use an F vector, I think. I noticed that you
Vector 3. Sorry, Sam's doing an Unreal on you.
Yes, sorry, vector 3.
So should we do that refactor? Should we change the type of?
I'm just looking at what the collateral damage is going to be, because there's one place where you're using local position. So you want to talk about that, the use of local position.
I'm not sure why that happened, but
it's there. So this is probably because you're trying to move relative to the camera, right?
Correct.
Because the P direction is childed to the camera. So if you use the local right and local forward, which I assume that is the control throw, local right and local forward.
That's here.
Yes,
the H radio would be the.
Gotcha. So you're turning those floats into. So one thing you could definitely do there, for example, is seeing as the H radial is only used in P direction move, you could bring line 64 to line 68 entirely into P direction move and just have the same H input and V input go into P direction move. But that's an aside.
Sure.
That's something we could work towards. And so I guess that the reason you're doing this is you're a bit afraid to go into doing the transform for yourself, transforming in the camera.
I think it was more that I was having a hard time figuring out the right and the forward from the same time.
Because
what you can do is you can tell me if I'm wrong, Ben, but you can get the right and forward off the camera's transform.
Don't worry, I will. That's joyful for me. Happens so infrequently.
At least you can in Unreal. Now you're gonna have to tell me that it's possible, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think off the camera transform you can get the right and forward vectors, and then rather than using the global right and forward vectors, you could use those, and then you wouldn't have to be adding to the local position, but to the global position of P direction. So everywhere we could just use an not an F vector.
Vector
3
for P direction.
And that's taking into account that the camera will be moving, orbiting around the player as well. So we would have to.
Because static on the camera called.
Not a static. It'll be an instance on the camera, camera transform. I imagine.
I don't know. Try camera.
It has to be an instance because it's changing with the transform.
Yeah, I think. Well, have a look. Have a look at camera dot and see what you get. I thought.
Or whatever your reference to the camera transform is. I think it was P camera or something.
If you've got one.
No, underscore camera. Yeah.
There's a main camera. There's the concept of a main camera. You see, that's the. But if you've already got a camera instance, then that's the one you want to use. Underscore camera dot. Try that somewhere. See what you get. So in update, anyway, will do. Not just it needs to be in a method yet. Now you got try forward. Try typing forward. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
So
that will return you your
the
camera instance's forward vector.
Exactly. And you'll get the same for right, I assume.
And that is local.
Yeah. So no, that'll be a forward in a vector in global space or world space that is the camera's local forward vector, if that makes sense. So that should help. And I think it would help.
Because the camera forward in the camera's space, Jason, just to be clear, will be very boring. It will just be 0, 0, 1, just Z equals 1. So
effector forward. Oh, forgive me.
So yeah, the camera's local forward will never tell you anything. Translate. The camera's local forward will never move. That's the point. It's a very boring result. So.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you want to try doing that refactor, or we can just look past it for now.
I think we should go do an overview and kind of get a broad stroke of it and then figure out what we can do.
So let me give you some more broad stroke input then. And also getting in from the community here, we have Perceptual Lucidity Games with a few things. So top of the class for a sec, couple of things. We can do multi-passes. One thing would be, why are we naming the class with a lowercase? Just from a convention, you're just saying you don't have many coding conventions. The IDE is slightly trying to school you. That's spelt with an SK there.
I did notice that.
Do you know how to rename a class robustly in Unity?
I remember seeing it from one of the last courses that I watched. I did not change it after I saw this because I didn't want to break anything.
Okay, cool. So that's exactly the sort of place where we can add value, because not changing because you don't want to break means that name will stay forever. So go into Unity, rename the file in Unity, number 1, in the Unity asset combobulator. You can just double click it. One of those slow double clicks.
Its official name, of course.
I did the fast double click.
Yeah, you need a slow and then, yep. Oh, I wouldn't call it the same, just in case. I wouldn't call it exactly the same. That only varies by case. Yeah, trying also, while we're on coding conventions, ditch the underscore, just because, why not? C# coding convention. Okay, try, if there's such a thing. My coding convention, let's just be honest. Okay, so back into so you've done that. Now we're in a slightly odd state where it's not going to work. Go into the class. And now, 2 things about renaming here. Number 1, use the refactor tool. Please don't just rename it, because other classes will reference this class name. So refactor tool, rename. Just left arrow probably on the left cursor, just to get to the left of that, right, and then like right cursor, delete, whatever. You know how to use a keyboard. Now actually do the apply. Now, the final gotcha here is that other classes probably have changed. I don't think they have, actually, which surprises me. But the smoking gun would be whether you start to get other little stars up against other files. So do a file save all right now. Because otherwise, the gotcha is that other files have had to change because of that rename and they haven't been saved. Okay, now we better go check the game still works. Probably won't. I don't expect it to work by the end of this, by the way. It's going to be a wonderful code review. We're going to give you all this stuff and the game won't work. So
that's the point, isn't it? You started off with it working, so you can refactor and get it back to working.
So just play it, make sure it actually runs. That's always a good sign.
I'm just reading through the code ahead, see if there's anything else.
Damn, we haven't broken it yet. All right, now, other thing I would say, if I was rock climbing now, the last peg I had in, the last piece of gear is quite a long way away. I'm feeling quite run out now. I'm feeling like we've done a reasonable amount. We should probably just do a quick commit, would be the habit, I would say. I know it's tiny, and the more confident you get, the same with climbing, the further you climb before you put another peg in. But we've done some stuff. Whack a commit in, never hurt anybody. Well, probably did. What if anybody died because they committed something? Only a very angry workplace.
Yeah, I think so.
How to do this?
Very upset boss.
How dare you?
The smallest.
Now you've given me strep throat.
The smallest commit I've ever seen was a single bit change that fixed a bug.
A single bit? That's awesome. A bit. Somebody went in the hex editor and went 0 to 1.
Well, I think it was literally a change from A to B or something.
Okay, awesome. So other broad strokes feedback then. Let's do one pass 4, and let's see who first can see it in the community. Let's do a pass 4, magic numbers, go. So a magic number is any number that is not 0, 1, or 2 that's inside the code, inside the methods of the code. Let's go. Scroll down, look for magic numbers.
Found a couple.
Oh, keep going. Oh, the suspense, dude. Oh, warning, magic number, line 98, offending magic number. Okay, so on line 98, we have an offending magic number here, 0.25. What is that? There's two problems with that number. Firstly, it is a parameter, so it should go in the new parameter section of your code. I don't care what it is, but it's a parameter. And it has some meaning.
It's in two places as well.
Go give it some meaning. What's that?
It's in two places. I've seen the 0.25 in a different place.
You sharp-eyed pea. All right, so if you could make that a constant float in capitals for coding convention, whatever you want to call it, and then do that thing, that would be awesome. Go for it. You have 10 seconds to comply. You in direct violation of Penal Code 123 under Section 9. You now have 5 seconds to comply. I'm now authorized to use deadly force. Sorry, I watched RoboCop when I was a kid. So constant audio clip. That's definitely what he was looking for.
Programming while Ben is talking over you is a hard task.
You see, this is the part of the boot camp he didn't realize he was getting, you see. If you can code when I'm in the same country, then you're doing well.
Yeah.
Sam has to go to the other side of Cambridge and put headphones on, and he still can't concentrate because I'm there on Zoom. Or he has my voice ringing in his head.
Or I take the headphones out. That helps usually.
I'm used to pausing and not having to listen to you whenever I do these challenges.
Well, you see, this is the other benefit of this. It's like, if you can't do it under pressure, soldier.
I wish I had a pause button in real life.
I would.
There we go.
Do you really want to be drawing long lines like that? Is you just winding me up?
I think.
So what do you mean by a move towards step? I think I know what you mean. This
is the move toward method that's built in, and it's the step variable that's required. So when we
what are the units of this? Are they game Are they game units, like typically meters per second? What are per frame? What are they?
It's the magnitude restriction on moving towards the object to make sure it doesn't jump over your move towards position.
That's a really long constant name.
Concise, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, so let's think about. So what is going on here? This is so when you stop and let it go of any controls, it moves back. The player moves back towards this direction. And what is this? This is saying you don't have to end up facing precisely where you were. It's just this is a tolerance, is it? In degrees. Yeah. What are the units for a start? Like, is it degrees?
I believe it is unity units.
So it's a distance.
Right.
Max distance delta is what they call it in documentation.
And that is, if the target is close to the max distance delta, then the return value will be equal to the target.
So you keep moving towards this target position until you get within that threshold.
The movement will not overshoot the target. I believe that is the correct layman's definition of what this
So it's a move towards threshold. You could call it that.
Sure.
Or
be longer.
Or it doesn't matter. Quite long, quite descriptive is good, and taking this time to think about it is good. Because
is this the same constant that's then used in moving towards the new location as well? This is 0.25.
I believe I threw it in there because I wasn't quite sure what the end was going to be.
So it might be.
And if it's a constant, you might want it in capitals.
I might be wrong. There isn't more than one, actually.
You may not be more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, no, it's a 0.025.
Abby's looking at the code and saying it is actually not a threshold, but it's the amount you move per frame until the destination is reached.
Yeah.
So let's get it in for a start. Let's just
it's a maximum. It's a maximum in the sense that if you're already that closer than that to the target, you'll just go to the target.
So then it is a threshold. It's the minimum move towards step.
No, it's not. It's not a threshold.
Well, it's the minimum move towards step.
No, it's the maximum move towards step.
The maximum move towards step.
Yes.
Yes. So if you're any less, okay. What we're saying is that you're going from point A to point B, and you're going to step in this step, which is 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, and at some point near B, you're going to have to do something that's less than 0.25. In which case, just do that in one lump, right?
Yeah.
So it's the max move step. You could just call it max move distance, or max return move distance, or max
Or the reset step size.
Reset step size. Oh, look at that. There's a name.
Because you don't really care that the fact that the last one is going to be less than the reset step size. I mean, the point is that that's how fast it's moving towards it resetting. Is this frame rate independent?
It is not. I don't know.
Okay, so to do one thing at a time, comment it here and ask yourself the question, is it frame rate independent? But let's finish what we're doing. That's an awesome question, but just grab it, hold it. No, let's not continue this. Maybe reset step size should be all capitals, by the way, because there's quite a difference between an instance variable, which some people like to make underscores in front of, maybe, and constant. So you might want to all capitalize it, which you can, of course, do.
Reset step size.
Strep throat Sam. Strep throat Sam. That's what we need. Strep throat Sam. Is this making sense, Jason, or do you now hate us? I meant all capitals, but you may not be able to stand to do all capitals, so maybe we have to. It's like a horse, it's like a riding school pony. It's like come on, canter, you bugger, canter. So one capital at a time, and then once you get into all capitals, that now sucks. So underscore between reset and step size would be a suggested coding convention. We could spend the rest of the stream talking about how you format code.
How should I pronounce your name, Avi NL? Like that? Avi Netherlands? Anyway,
I'm going for Avi.
It in the chat.
Because I used to call him Anvil, and then reset underscore step underscore size would be ideal. We don't want to upset Avi.
Says it's pronounced Anvil.
Yeah, if you reset Avi, he's going to throw a big bottle of, what did you share with us earlier? Whatever he had on his table, some apple juice at us. I think that's what he would throw at us. He shared his workspace, but it's much better than my workspace. Okay, so is there anywhere else in the code? Why don't you do a Control F for 0.25? Now, this doesn't guarantee that.
I think that's the only place.
That it's the same thing, because you may have set a different value somewhere else when you meant to set the same one. But do you think, from your memory, that this is used anywhere else? Probably not. Okay, let's keep scrolling down. We're still looking for magic numbers, guys. First person to type in the chat the magic number when they see it gets a stretch session.
Shall I leave one that I've seen then for them to type in?
What you've seen one before line 1, 2? Ugh. Where have you seen one, Sam? Well, there's one there.
108.
126. What's going on 126? Line 126. You've got it highlighted. 0.25. Have you not changed it yet? That's what's going on.
No, that's 0.025.
That's 0.025. What is this? This is on your move. This is your move.
I think that's a typo.
What's that?
I think that's a typo.
Oh.
It might not be, because that one's multiplied by the move speed.
Yeah, and your deltas and your frame rate independence. So we'll come back to that. So rather than assuming it's a typo, let's. It probably isn't a typo, because it was moving at the right speed when you played it a moment ago.
That probably was a fluke.
So you see how the naming things, taking magic numbers out, you see the value of taking magic numbers out. So your brain's tempted to go 0.25, did I mean 0.025? And then you change it, and then the thing goes 10 times as fast, and it's probably not frame rate independent anyway. So one thing at a time, but what is that? That, I think, is the max, it's the move step size is what I think it is.
Oh, it's the same call.
Yeah,
it's the move towards with the max. What was it, max delta or whatever?
But it's happening when you move rather than you reset. When you're resetting,
it's the player moving towards the P direction target as opposed.
And you can see it clearly that now because of the refactor we did earlier. You can see that it's during the move rather than the reset.
But what I don't understand is why is it a multiple of the move speed? Why is the move speed not just smaller?
Let's find our move speed.
And maybe the move speed isn't the move speed. Yeah, so you don't need the two of those, you see. So now by doing this, you're going to be multiplying. If we carry on down this route, you're going to be multiplying your move speed by some capitalized parameter to get a number that collapses down to the same thing, because they're both effectively parameters.
Right.
So I would, in this instance, I would look at what you've got your move speed set to, which I think was 2. It was set to 2 at the top, wasn't it?
Yes, it was 2.0f.
And is it something that changes? Is it state of the class, or is it a parameter? Is it like capitals, like constant?
I can play with it I serialized it.
You serialized it. Okay, so if you're serializing it, then it's not constant. Therefore, we're not putting it in big capitals. Therefore, It's not.
Although I would argue that maybe the reset step size should be something configurable.
It maybe want to be configurable, but for the sake of learning in this exercise, let's have a variety of things. You're completely right, Sam. But if we know it's not going to, if it's a compiled compilation decision, it's something about the way that their kind of Unity works and the engine, and then you make it a constant in capitals like that. If you want it to be configurable in serialized fields, then of course you make it a parameter, a serializable parameter. So let's do that. Let's put it in the parameter section, and let's change move speed to, instead of 2, it should be 2.0, God, my pen looks bad, times 0.025, which is, of course, 0.05.
Okay, let's see. Where would I put it?
And you can use my template at the top there, if you like, and start putting things in the sections. Yeah, there you go, serialized field. That'll make people happy. Those people there who are looking at public and saying public, which we haven't roasted you about yet, because we're kind.
I expect you to roast me about everything.
Okay, that's cool.
Why is, oh,
That variable name.
I suppose that's important. Shall I rename it to move speed? Get rid of the other one?
You can leave it as move speed and just take the other one out, just completely. Yeah. Now, when you do this, be careful. Schema migration. Or data migration is fine in this instance of just one player. If you had hundreds of instances of enemies in your game right now, all of which had values set in their serialized fields, doing what you're about to do would wipe out those values, because you're creating a new variable and you would lose those serialized pieces of information.
I want to see if there's a way of doing this. I'll just research this quickly, because I know that in Unreal there's a way of migrating your field names.
Yeah. Well, there is here as well. We would just change this one, move speed, to 0.05 or that calculation.
There is something very cool, and I will post in.
Sam's going to post it in the chat for those more advanced amongst you who care. Awesome. So that move speed now, let's go put that in, that magic number. Should I spit, guys? Should we do a poll? I'm going to do a poll as to whether I should spit after everything that I don't approve of. I'll just do a quick poll. It's going to be the most valuable poll we've ever done.
It's so valuable.
Only if it goes ding after you spit.
Ding.
Yeah, you need a little bucket to spit into.
Oh, man.
Then you can count how much disgusting thing you've been doing all day by looking at the bucket.
I'm so going to do that. I'm so going to, on my stream deck, have a ting. Spit and ding. Awesome. Thank you for contributing to the future of GameDev.tv, Jason.
Of course.
Keeps people aware of best practices as perpetual lucidity games.
Stand by for your first poll, guys, on this. You're going to need bits.
Have we got sidetracked, Jason? Shall I take over?
No, it's fine, Sam. It's all perfect. You're going to need bits to vote in this poll. You have to buy bits. Why? Because we want people to take polls seriously. So there's a tiny cost, like 1 cent to vote in a poll. But here it comes. Very serious poll. Very important to the future of how we work. Should Ben spit and ding when he disapproves of something? Should I play a sound that spit and ding? Or should I actually spit into a metal bowl? You can tell me that in the chat. So, Sam, please carry on.
Real metal bowl with a microphone attached. So
that?
the look speed, I think that looks like a serialized kind of parameter, right?
It is not serialized.
But as in that, I expect that's what it should be.
That's a parameter, right?
Yeah.
Time
Something that you
focus
want the
probably
designer to be able to.
And time focus may be a magic number masquerading as not a magic number. So if you want to be able to configure
it's not.
time,
That's just a 0 to start off the adding.
Yeah, so in that case, it's not a magic number. Firstly, but what I'm saying is that 0 or 1 can still be something that should be a parameter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It can either be 0 or 1 because it kind of logically is always going to be 0 or 1. Like in this case, you're starting counting at 0. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're missing the fact that actually it doesn't need to be a plus equals at all. By the looks of this.
Really?
It looks like it could just be time focus equal delta time times look speed.
Because every time you do a facing up, the plus equal is never going to accumulate because every time you call facing update, you're starting again.
Yep.
So you could get rid of the plus equals, or you could comment to say do that a little bit later because you'd want to check that it has no impact and be. So it's up to you. Either do it or.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure this has no impact.
Yeah, I can see that it doesn't as well.
So what would it be set to? It would be.
As in just when you. Let's see.
Just double click on time focus. on the
Right.
word time focus. You can see where it's used. It's only used there, there, and there. Therefore, when you call facing update, it sets it to 0, adds that stuff to it, uses it, and does nothing else. So
So it could just be plus.
there's
or
no,
time
it just
focus.
equals, because there's no accumulation going on there.
Right.
Yeah? Equals backslash, that'll do. You don't see the poll. Oh my God, they don't see the poll.
And
underscore?
I would declare the float, the time focus right there on line 11, because you don't need it before. And then you can get rid of 109 rather.
Perceptual Lucidity Games was way ahead of you there, Sam. He got that comment in milliseconds before you said it.
Which one?
The good point that you made about the fact that you may as well just set its value while you're declaring it. So
Cool.
Awesome. So look speed. You still get this funny underscores going on there, bit of inconsistent naming. You might want to just do a splodger, get rid of the underscore, make us all feel a little less ill.
Well, I don't know. It depends if that's your convention, if you stick to it. But can you the real challenge is, can you explain to me what your convention is?
If there are two, no, apparently there's not, because it's getting up. I think I tried to use the lower, at least the underscore in the beginning as a public
He's
game
dating
object
with
or transform.
you're dating with different coding standards, but it's time to commit, man. Ask them to marry a coding standard.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely, just stick with something.
That laugh with a bit of hay fever, that sounded like Dastardly and Muttley, stop the pigeon, stop the... Have you heard Dastardly laugh? It goes like this. You see, oh God, I'm just going to go and recover from that.
It's not an easy one to do. Yeah. I imagine that's what the voice actor for Dastardly must have felt like every time.
I need some Gollum soup. I think that's what Andy Serkis needed from spending all his time in Lord of the Rings. My precious little ring. And then after 5 minutes of that, you can't breathe. Okay.
I think he was probably just talking normally, and they had some sort of vox coder on him.
He was actually making a stupid noise like that and had to drink some goop to keep his voice alive. Honest.
Well, anyway, I think we're not adding value to Jason's code right now. Let's.
But edutainment.
Adding value to my day, though.
What's that?
That's good then.
Another quick bit of feedback in the chat. Should we arse around while we're doing this, or should we just be focused? You tell us. I'm happy to be focused. I'm not capable of being focused. That's different.
Yes.
But
if you want it focused, then I might come on the stream on my own. If you like it defocused, then we invite Ben.
Yeah, exactly. So let's keep looking for magic numbers. We're doing well. Do you feel like you're bashing back those magic numbers, Jason?
Sure.
Can you see there's any value in thinking about these magic numbers or not?
Very much so.
Wonderful.
This was not a lead question at all.
No. Why is your look speed still in the code then?
Because I'm leaving it there. I got to marry. I focus on marrying.
But you've got a number 5. Look at that line 109. Move it up. It's a parameter. See what I mean?
It won't take long.
It won't take long.
It won't hurt.
It will. Peer programming. Like peer
This
pressure.
is too many peers. Yeah, it's like peer overload programming.
So now, because of the way these completely unbiased polls work in here, the fact you can either vote with 1 bit or 100 or 1,000, so that nothing could go wrong there. We have 103 votes, 104 votes for yes, I should spit and ding, and 1 vote for no. So, which actually means we've got 5 votes for yes.
I'm really interested who voted no. Could someone give some reasoning, like why they really don't like the spitting?
Well, it's pretty disgusting if you think about it.
I guess it's disgusting.
If I said, should I hock, spit and ding, they probably would have been the other way. It's the lack of hock that probably makes it acceptable.
Against the world.
So let's find it, Jason. You tell us where the next magic number is, if there are any in here.
I didn't see any, but that's not saying much.
That's cool. And I can see from the coloring that there are no magic. I'm making a new term. I don't care if it exists in programming. Magic words or magic strings are what I'm going to say next. So there are magic numbers, which are numbers that aren't 0, 1, or maybe 2. And there are magic strings, which are basically strings. Any strings. I can't see any strings in here that aren't either the blank string. Yeah, there's those, but the axis binding like that, because you've got an input manager as an intermediary, and because they're the defaults for the input manager. Well, you're not using cross-platform input here, but you could be. You've still got input binding and an intermediary layer, and you're using the defaults and live with it. There's no sensible way around that. That's okay. I'll let you off.
Yeah.
I can sleep at night with those strings there.
We'll
Just
Wonderful.
you get away this time.
unless you're Jan in the Godot course, in which case I spent about 3 days talking to him about how to eliminate strings in a language where it's nearly impossible to eliminate them. Poor Jan. Thank you for forgiving me. He probably hasn't. He hasn't spoken to me since then. Shit. Okay. Good. So we've done a magic number pass. We've done a magic strings pass. We are still a little bit feeling ill about your unmarried coding standards, but you're getting the idea that maybe some of these freaking underscores could disappear. So Sam would put it like this. So Jason, talk us through why, justify for us why you're prefixing some of your variables with an underscore.
I prefix the objects that are public transforms or public game objects that I have to drag in from Unity to reference.
Your cached references, effectively. So from if you look at my set of comments above, if we try and get your header into that order, configuration parameters first, private instance variables for state, cached references, and I've said for readability because there's only two reasons I can imagine you want to cache a reference rather than just find it when you need it. One is it makes the code more readable, i.e. camera, player, rigid body is easier to read than find object of type or whatever.
Right.
And then the other is it may be faster, but we may not care.
Isn't there also the case where you actually don't know where the other thing is? Like, we've got some examples here with the P direction and the camera. How do you know which camera to connect to?
They're parameters. They're
parameters at that point, you'd say?
Yeah, they're parameters. They ought to be serialized field, by the way. They ought to just be parameters.
Because I'd still call them references, but not cached.
Well, they're not cached. They're cached because you've dropped them in the inspector. You're just keeping a reference.
That's not a cache. That's state at that point, right? Isn't it? It's kind of, yeah, I guess it's
You're caching it during the lifetime of the object. While that instance is alive and running, it's got a cached reference.
Yeah, but if it exists in the scene, then it's always...
It should be all right, but you'd still be at liberty to delete that reference and then have a null reference later. You'd still be at liberty to at runtime delete.
But you're at liberty to delete your parameters from your...
Yeah, exactly.
From your scene file as well. So
Yeah, so there's a bit of a grey area, which is why they're right next to each other, between references that have been dragged in the inspector, which is a good place generally for asset binding, and references that have been found in code.
And I think the difference is whether they are public or serialized field, right? Do excuse me.
He's just recombobulating. Hey guys, okay, the stream's been going a while. Nobody else is coming on, so our other tier 3 subscribers are scared or just testing the water. We're going nearly an hour, so I'm going to lead a small exercise session, guys, including you, Jason, if you are willing. I think we have been sitting too long. If you're wearing an Apple Watch right about now, it would be saying something like, get off your ass. So I'm going to stand back a little bit, and I'm going to get us to move. So one of the things I do is I stand up and move my arms around like this. You don't have to do exactly that, but if you can try and think about mobilizing your thoracic spine a little bit, get those vertebrae that have been sat still for hours or minutes moving, that can be a good thing.
Go get a beer.
Get a beer. Another thing that can be good is to put your hand down and to grab your forearm like that and to think about stretching out a little bit that way because you've been pronating your wrist on your mouse for ages. So let's do a little bit of this and maybe move your spine to the side again. So that's a thing that will help with a computer. Also, look into the distance because your poor old eyes have been focused on the same thing for ages. We've got to have an equivalent of that, which is stop a bit of silence as well. We'll do that in a second. And the other thing is watch this shoulder, right? So my shoulder is, what's the technical term, buggered up. The more technical explanation is that the humerus head at the top of my arm there is too far forward of the acromion, which is the top of my shoulder blade. So you want to reset your brain into thinking you don't hold your shoulder forward, which is where you get mouse hand problems because your rhomboids at the back end up too stretched, your deltoids end up too tight. What you want to do is just take the difference between that and your shoulder being just slightly back. Just hold it natural. The two shoulders should be even.
Get one of these, Ben.
Or you grab that and make yourself into a cyborg. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So there you go. We've moved a bit. Do we feel better for moving? Maybe not. Yeah, your physio mother would love this.
Good.
So we've done magic numbers. We've done magic strings. What else? What's the next thing, Sam, that you would like to attack or give some coding love to?
Just having a look at the code base and seeing whether...
So from
I mean, there's some functionality things that we could look at as well, I think. I noticed the while loop taking us back to the reset movement has a while loop in it, and I think we could do without the while loop, for example. It might be more readable. What else have we got? Because I think you can do that sort of clamp just on the direction of the vector.
Right. I was having some issues where the p direction object was snapping back to the 0, 0 of the player, and so it would cause the player to look.
Yeah, so if you go to 0, 0, you've got no direction, right?
Right.
So what you could do is, let's see, you could take it to the...
I guess it could be an
normalize it. So for example, what you could do is you could normalize it, then multiply it by the minimum float length or something. Then it would be effectively as close to zeros as possible while maintaining a direction. Something like that, not multiplied by the minimum float length, but multiplied by a very small amount, because at the moment, what have you got? You've got a, you're moving it towards the player position. Oh, okay. No, but that's... So what was happening when, because you are eventually getting to 0, you're getting to the player position, but you're
right. So what I wanted to do is when there was no input, it would snap back to the player and it would be fine. But what ended up happening is when I would move the player around, let's see, I wish I could just redo it without breaking it, but I would move the player around like this. So as move speed is insane. And then when it would stop, he would reface back towards his original starting position instead of stopping where he or she was looking.
Mm-hmm.
Like for now, it stops because I set the player direction not to come back to 0, 0. And if it's not past a certain point, then he stops turning.
Yeah, because the player direction is not actually a direction; it's an offset, right?
And it was hashed together. So, I mean, if there's a better method for doing that, such as, what you've already suggested, which is just grabbing the transform in the first place and working off that, then that might be the answer instead of trying to fix what's already broken.
Yeah, no.
So you've got a note to do that. I would say probably zoom back out to the broad strokes again for a second, because what I'm still aware of is that the readability of some of the code further down is not quite there in terms of its
like check interest targets, right?
Okay, got an issue. Go up a little. 2 issues I'm seeing immediately. Broad strokes issues is what you asked for. Firstly, this indent here. You can see the naughty indent. That naughty indent is confusing. The seriousness of the crime. My God. 4 spaces. This is like Silicon Valley. They are spaces. Oh, hold on. I don't even know which side of the fence I'm on. I don't care. Spaces.
I think originally I had an else and then...
yeah, I know one of them. Like Phantom else syndrome. FES. It's a technical term. It's well known on Stack Overflow. Okay, and then check interest targets. Now that one's looking like a naughty to me. Let's have a look at that. Firstly, your first challenge is, can you get it on the screen? Oh, nearly gone without changing font size. Just no. Oh, naughty. Go down. There's more stuff below the fold.
Yeah, it's definitely more than the screen full.
You got to spit, I'm afraid. So let's look at that guy. It's beautiful. It's beautifully crafted. I'm sure it does amazingly clever stuff. I'm not clever enough to work out what it does. This many levels of indent blow my brain up. So let's just extract this puppy for a start. Just take that out. Run the extract tool. See what happens. Good old C#. Strongly typed language. It'll let you do an extract and nothing could possibly go wrong. In fact, really nothing could possibly go wrong. And now you get your parameters of that thing, which you're now going to name in a way that approximates to the behavior it has, which is as good as we ever get to. But it's why naming is so important. Okay, so you're going to populate targets. Now, my next challenge. Do you need... Now you're passing an iterator through this I. What is an I? I'm guessing it's an iterator. It's the only reason we'd ever call anything I.
I need to undo that so I can make sure this is actually grabbing what I'm grabbing.
Okay, so let's
okay. No, so that the naming is incorrect.
So here you could be passing the interest target in question rather than I. I guess.
Yeah, the whole target, yeah. But get the extract first, and then let's make sure it runs, and then we'll do a to-do, because we're getting into 3 parameters now. So target dictionary. Is that doing a thing? That sounds like a noun to me.
So here's what this is doing. It's going through and it's checking all of it's grabbing all the game objects with a certain target, and then it's saying if it goes ahead and instantiates that array, and then it says check those array, and if they meet the qualifying criteria, then add them into a dictionary. I'm not sure if the dictionary is the right call here.
So I wouldn't use the word dictionary because you don't need to justify the data structure in the name of the method. I would just say add target. Maybe. Or qualifying target, even better. Beautiful. Let's go with that. Now, I would say don't go in any further right now because we are deep into our tree of what we're trying to do here. So I would personally to do this now and challenge myself to say, do we really want 3 parameters? You don't normally want 3 parameters on a method. Sometimes you do. You don't always. Like before, sometimes one thing is derived from another. As Sam's saying, you might want to pass the entire target rather than this iterator. But let's zoom out again. The method still does too much, right? Now what I want you to do is extract all of this, lines 138 to 149, and see what happens. Then you see how we're working. I don't know what this code does, but I will know what it does by the time we finish this refactor.
Maybe it doesn't do one thing, so maybe this isn't the right line to... Because Ben doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't. We'll find out. If it refactors and it still works, and the refactor is sensible. If it doesn't, then maybe it doesn't do one thing. And why couldn't you refactor the 3 lines above as well? Did it just do a minging suggestion?
No, I wanted to keep these because these are actually setting up the variables prior to, and so I figured I'd grab the if and else statement and check that into its own method itself, because it's running this for loop on all the targets in the array, and then we're setting these for each one.
What does it look like if you do extract the whole lot? If you cancel this and extract the whole lot, let's have a look at the... I sort of buy it, but I sort of don't. That looks all right. Check targets, It's more like target, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I being a pedant? Check now you're starting to understand what you do. Check interest targets. Interest target, you go and find something tagged with target, and you go through them. And you, by the way, you could, and don't do it right now, you could go to for each here, because this thing is going to be iterable.
And this needs to be plural, because when you're getting an interest target and then getting its length, it's a bit strange.
Yep, so that's interest targets, because it's game objects, therefore it's interest targets. Oh, this is almost fun. Isn't F2 a shortcut for rename? Maybe. Thank you very much. And Avi? Okay.
Nobody can see me press F2, though.
Now, where you have a comment that tells you what the lump of code does below, guess what I'm going to suggest we do? We potentially make that a method as well. Is it over methodizing? Maybe. But see how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, this feels a lot easier to reason about by far.
The difference between using a method and a comment is you've not got really any more code, a tiny bit because of these extra curlies that you end up with. But apart from your extra shortened curlies there, you haven't added many more lines of code. And this log all keys will not go out of sync with what it actually does. So you can now get rid of that because it tells you what it does. And wow, I think that looks a bit better. Now, of course, we've just moved the stuff down further, but does that help us reason about what check interest target does now? I personally can see at an instant what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Go get everything that's tagged with target, you iterate through them, yeah, you're going to use a for each later, and yeah, check the target, and then you log all keys.
Yeah, I'd be even more verbose about check target and say, check target is qualifying or something like that. Or because it's also adding it to the dictionary.
Yeah, it has a side effect.
Yeah.
It's not just checking. What else does check target do? Let's have a look at check target. Side effects mean that the method is pretending to do one thing. Oh, I'm just checking the target's gov, and secretly, changing the state of your class. You are actually, you are sometimes adding qualifying targets and sometimes removing qualifying targets. So you are... Don't use manage. Don't use manage. Manage doesn't mean anything. It's very tempting. Oh, we're managing the targets. Well, yeah.
Target qualifier?
Maybe you're doing two things. Maybe you're doing two things. Maybe that thing that, as Sam said earlier, is just doing two things. So
should we have a look at what it's doing?
Yeah, add or remove. Oh. What do you think it's doing, Jason?
It is checking to see if the target is qualifying. So
Yeah, it's also removing.
Yeah, so I'm worried about these side effects, and there's a
Right.
side effect in here doing some adding to a dictionary. So
Well, add qualifying target also removes it if it already exists, because I found out that the dictionary did not update the value, and I can't seem to find a way to update an existing key in a dictionary. So I just remove it and add another one.
That's interesting. Can you not just overwrite the value?
You can just overwrite the value. We can work through that with you in a bit. You just go literally the thing, square brackets, the key name equals, and just overwrite it.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
But what is this method doing? It's not target. It's not doing target. That sounds like a raid on a popular American shop.
And so what are the data structures that it ends up being in? So we've got, is it just the dictionary? What's targets in range? Is that?
It's not a check. It's not just checking. Checks shouldn't change state. See how naming is so important. I know this is frustrating, but this is when you put this effort into naming and everything, you get the clarity you need to build on your code rapidly. Doesn't just write it well, I guess it updates qualifying target.
Well, so hang on. What is it doing? Can I just take a step back? The targets in range, is this the dictionary?
Yes, the targets in range is the dictionary.
Yeah. And the add qualifying targets, is it just adding to the dictionary, or is it mutating anything else? Can we just take a look at that for a second?
Sure.
170. Okay, so we're adding like if indict false and if is in. Okay, got it. So I would say.
So you needed to do on here, which is just access, just continue to work out how to access dictionary items directly, which should just be interesting targets, bracket the thing, and then just overwrite it. So it should just be this equals whatever you want to overwrite it with, I would have thought. But that's cool. So you've got to kind of work around because you didn't know the syntax or because I'm wrong.
I would say it's called something like update.
Qualifying targets.
Update targets in range from target.
Too long.
I don't know.
From target I, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
I know it's long, but that's actually what it's doing.
Yep.
Much better to have a long method name and be sure about what it's doing.
Thank you, Perceptual Acidity Games have just upgraded for some totally unknown reason their subscription to Tier 2. You will never regret it. This is the place to be for serious code reviews. Yep. All right, awesome. So that's better. I'm clearer on what that does. So the final thing I'm feeling, it's like rolling out pizza dough, although Sam would say you shouldn't roll it and tell you all about it.
No, you shouldn't roll it. It knocks all the air out. You have to stretch it. But anyway.
Shit, I shouldn't have started talking about pizzas when they're too on the call. It's like nothing to do with pizza.
Language, Ben.
It's like rolling anything but dough, and we're just trying to get the big lumps out of it first. We're trying to kind of roll a rolling pin down the class and say, where are the big lumps of code that we can't easily understand? And I think we've done quite well. I don't think there are any real mingers.
No, that's the technical term.
Yeah.
The real mingers.
Put that in the chat so people understand. I think that there are no real mingers here. Guess what we haven't done for a while?
What's that? Committed.
Committed. Exercising regularly and committing regularly. What's that? We need to do a commit dance.
Commit dance.
Dance or dance? Like a flamenco dance.
Where's the poll for dance versus dance?
The poll is in poll. Do you want to see me pole dancing? There you go. If we get when we get to 100 Tier 3 subscribers, I will pole dance in this room. Right there, in whatever you want me to wear, but it has to be something.
But not necessarily on camera.
and you know what? This is guaranteeing us we'll never get to 100 Tier 3 subscribers. God, I shouldn't have done that. Okay. It's like, no.
Very, very odd Tier 3 subscribers.
Yeah, they would be. Bless them.
Seems to be working.
Pole dance shirtless while Jan watches. Probably did that as a kid. But anyway, I might have the right to cancel my subscription if that happens. Sorry, sir. You all deserve the right to cancel your descriptions. We're nearly there, actually, Jason. We've been an hour and much longer. We're pretty much there. I think we're going to need to break into Q&A. So I will ask you before we break into general Q&A. Do you have any general questions? Do you get the kind of the? Do you fear this, man?
Of course.
Is it
I've got to go get betrothed. That's number one.
You're going to marry a code style. You're going to stop using more than two, ideally one, but more than two parameters where possible, and think about either wrapping stuff like that into a struct, or sending a richer value type that already exists. Like you don't need to be sending the index of an interest target if you could just send the interest target, for example, especially if interest target's already a member variable. You will start serializing only, these are like the 10 commandments. You will start serializing only the types, the most specific type you need to. So your transforms, if they're only going to take the position of them, will become vector 3s, not transforms. Therefore, it's just less open to abuse. And then you'll
definitely use this dictionary in a better way, I can see.
That's exactly what he intended to type. That's why we love these IDEs. He definitely intended to type whatever on earth that was. Image effect transform to... I love it. You get instant replay over on the laptop because of the Twitch lag. It's wicked. Oh, look, perceptual lucidity. Really, we have to do something here. There's a naughty. Another naughty is the epsilon naughty. So epsilon is the smallest floating point number that can be represented on this system at this moment. And hopefully, if Unity have done it right, on the given target thing, the Android phone, the Xbox, whatever. Look for where you are comparing a float to each other or to 0 and slap yourself. So you do a naughty float slap, goes like this. That's the naughty
I disagree.
Oh, wow.
Only because when you have the input axis, you have to have 0.0f as your not any keys down. You can't do math f dot epsilon, otherwise it only works with the forward. Correct?
With input... I think that's a subject for another stream because there's a lot more to it with input, especially key input. If we briefly go into Unity Editor for a second, let's not get into this now because I think we're running out of time. I don't like comparing floats to 0, so I think we have an issue there. But let's just go into Unity. But you've got a point as well, absolutely, Jason. Let's go to Edit and Project Settings and Input. I'm remembering my menus right.
As well as using epsilon, you can use fmath.approximately.
Yep. Now, so you've got issues to consider are things like the dead space. You've got gravity, you've got... Do you know what these things do, Jason? Yeah, you do. So gravity, dead space, and sensitivity. So just make sure you're not doing this in two places. Because the idea with Unity, right, is you push a key and it acts like you're moving a stick on a gamepad, because obviously with a gamepad you can't move it at infinite speed. So the sensitivity is how fast it ramps up from 0 to 1. The gravity is how fast it goes down, and then the dead is if it is a stick, what's the dead space? What is close enough to 0? So you're saying that with a key you need to say equals 0. I don't think you need to. I think what you need to say is I don't know. Let's come back to that on another stream. But generally comparing floats is really dangerous because the underlying representation may vary by a tiny little bit. And now my challenge to you would be, could you eliminate that safely, even in the case of input? In general, yes, you should do it. In the case of input, you might be right, but that's my challenge and my challenge to the community. So awesome. I think that's it, Jason. We're going to throw it out to general question now. You're welcome to try and come on the next one. It may be booked out because people will have seen this and gone, wow, these guys are amazing. Or we'll never get another code review.
I've seen this, and yeah.
Has it been helpful, Jason? And is there, what's one thing you enjoyed about it, and what's one thing we could do better?
I think being the first one on here, setting a precedent, taking it back towards more beginner coders, like most of your courses are, has been a real pleasure, and I've learned quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being brave enough to do it. And what could be one thing we could do better?
I think you should take people's code prior to the actual stream itself and take a quick look at it and then kind of walk through it from there. I think that'll give more bang for the buck for whoever's coming on to have their code reviewed.
For the person, okay, and then I need to balance that against the community who then get us coming with too much prior knowledge. Absolutely, that's possible. And would you be willing to write us in the chat or by a Twitch whisper or by an email just a 1-paragraph testimonial for having your code reviewed online so that we can convince other suckers that this is a good idea?
Of course.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. Awesome, Jason. You're great. So if you don't mind stopping sharing your screen is what I'm trying to say. And we can have our wonderful mugs. If you don't mind continuing to grace us with your presence while we finish off the chat, that's awesome. If you need to leave, just leave. Thank you very much. Guys, give Jason a big hand. I don't know how you do it. You could slam some bits, but that's more for our benefit. Some cheers, that's more for our benefit. You could say, well done at... And then his Twitch handle. Who remembers what his Twitch handle is? I do, but does the others?
It's Terravice.
Yeah, Terravice. Terra-Vice. Okay, so well done, Terravice, seriously, because look, he's just come on here in front of an unknown number of people. I've gone and been a goon and announced it to loads of people on Udemy. So we've got the biggest ever stream we've ever had. And this dude is showing us his code, and everything we've said was effectively negative, despite the fact his code is great, and he's getting lots of stuff done, and he's out there making a game, and good on you, mate. So well done. Thank you for being that.
Thank you very much for being our guinea pig.
Long term, I should set the expectations for everybody that being a Tier 3 subscriber long term at $25 a month cannot guarantee you a code review every month or week or whatever. It's just going to, as the demand goes up, it's just going to be a question of if you're on here, on Zoom, on time, with your voice, with your picture, able to share your screen, you're in the mix, you're in the lottery, and then we pick 2 people per session. That's how it's going to work as we grow.
Yep.
But for now, the early people are going to be pretty much guaranteed that when we do them, they're there. Look at our events page. You know where our events page is on Twitch. Now let's answer questions. That was fun. Yeah, I thought it was fun. Thank you, Terravice. Oh, hold on, Terravice. Thank you very much, Jason, for giving us a cheer. Where are you on the cheer leaderboard? A little behind, but doing well. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come out of full screen, and so that you don't have to keep looking in my right ear, I'm going to just bring the chat up on here, on the screen. And then if you want us to do anything, and this is not one of those, what do they do on these weird streams like in real life where you ask people to do things? God, the end result of that is pretty hard to think about. But you can ask us to answer questions. You can ask us to do funny things. You can, whatever. Let's just try. If we don't want to do something or answer something, we'll just say, no, we won't do it. We refuse.
Yes. We'll do anything that we want to do.
What's that?
We'll do anything that we want to do.
You'll do anything that we want to do. Sam will probably leave in 11 minutes. Otherwise, his wife might disown him. Is that right?
Yeah, probably.
Could be worse. Please stand on my head.
Yeah, you can do that.
Right. There are some
challenges that Ben can't say no to.
Stand on my head or do a handstand? Which one do we want?
Oh, handstand, I think.
Handstands much.
Go down the stairs backwards on your hands.
I'll do both.
He's perfectly well practiced at this. There you go. That's the handstand. There you go.
Not bored yet.
Well, I think they're quite entertained, actually.
What's that?
I think they're quite entertained.
There you go.
Well,
so I did both a headstand and a handstand.
No
No extra charge.
expecting you not to be wearing trousers. I'm a bit surprised too, to be honest.
Have I got trousers on? Oh my God, that was lucky. Yeah, and some cheers. I've got to get some cheers for that. Come on, if there's any time when I'm going to ask you for cheers and to go and buy some bits, it's that, because I just risked. At my age, I probably risked a stroke doing that.
Oh yeah, right.
Not the good type of stroke.
Yeah. So yesterday he was doing all sorts of flips and crazy types of flips on the trampoline. Your pulse was at like 200, wasn't it?
Yeah, my pulse was 21 points above the theoretical maximum for my age, which probably meant I was dead. I might be dead. Maybe that's why I'm so weird.
Dead. Yeah, undead.
So that wasn't about coding, but it did. That if you're going to wake yourself up, do a handstand. That's good.
Yeah, I like your rotation, Terravice.
Yeah, look at that. Tristan.rotation.euler. Euler, by the way. I got told off a lot by a German. It's supposed to be Euler, not Euler. I might just keep saying Euler just to annoy the Germans, or I might be erudite and say Euler. I'm not sure. Yes,
Depends on if you call it GIF or GIF or not.
Oh, do we call it Godot, Godot, or what's the other one?
Jodot.
Godot, and what? What do other people call it? They call it Godot. You see, the founder of the engine doesn't know how to say it. So if Juan Linietsky doesn't know how to say it, then nobody does. Excellent handstand form. Thank you. We've got a bigger challenge. On a future stream, I shall attempt to walk down a flight of stairs in a handstand and still be alive at the end of it. But the deal is we're going to have to give a certain amount of money to charity. That's what we ought to do if I make it. So I'll set that up.
And if he doesn't make it to that amount to his hospital fees.
Sam, unfortunately, this means you now have to attempt a handstand.
No, I can't do the handstand.
According to the community. Okay. We'll do a handstand course at some point on Udemy.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's what we'll do.
Well, Ben can do that. I'm not. I can be the beginner, maybe.
Yeah. Ah, dear. Okay, guys, any other questions, concerns, etc.? We are going to... Handstand course could be fun. There's a whole bunch of body weight kind of fun stuff to do things. What was... Tobias was showing me yesterday how to hang upside down off a windowsill and then do weird stuff with your legs. It was very strange because if your hands slip, you end up piling into the ground with your head, which isn't so good.
Great.
Godot sounds the best in IMO, is what Male Ninja Max says. Maybe a course can involve a character from Mikey where you walk around the level on your hands. Hey, BitGamey, that's not a bad idea, a hand-walking game. I haven't actually seen a hand-walking game. I like that. Nice plan. Thank you for that. Has the stream been all right? Let's have a quick look at Twitch Inspector. It says excellent, good job, all well, old chap, is what it says. So hopefully it has.
That's a very posh stream inspector.
So Perceptual Lucidity Game says, I'm curious if you... What's that?
Tally-ho, stream ahead.
In the Air Force, we actually used to have to do this. You had to sit in a plane, look somebody in the eye, and say, "Chocks away." This was the sign, which is what they saw, but you also would lip "chocks away." Can you believe? It's like you really need a handlebar moustache at that point. In fact, the best handlebar moustache is the ones you can see from behind, like Pablo Mason. You know you've got a real handlebar moustache when it's visible from behind. You know, both sides. So.
Speaking of that, we could do a handstand game with an accelerometer, right?
Yeah, that would be
cool. Take your phone and just kind of...
Dude, man, somebody
fall
do that.
out of your pocket.
and then like a bit of like Goat Simulator style horrible wipeouts and flailing ragdoll going down the hill if you wipe out.
Broken necks, yeah.
Stairwalker, hand stairwalker. Like Luke Skywalker, but different. My name is Hand Stairwalker.
Ben Handstander.
Yeah, you could go down these massive like monuments and what's that? The gateway to the what's that Chinese thing? The stairway. I don't want to look up Stairway to Heaven on Google in the same way as you don't really want to look up GIMP on Google when you're doing the GIMP course. But there's something in China called the China Stairs Heaven Gates. Oh, should I Google this live? It's not my fault if it goes wrong. I think I'm all right. There you go, guys. That is called the Gates of Heaven or something. That there is a staircase. That's like
the Land Rover going up it.
They had a Land Rover going up it, and you could take that. The shape of that cave is a little suspect. You could take that, and you could have a character trying to walk down it, and if they fail, they could just like flail, and all the limbs could start coming off. it'd be like. And
then they explode at the bottom.
And then they explode. Got to explode, haven't you? Just like a fuel tank on a car in a Hollywood movie. It's got to explode.
Yes.
It could be like Goat Simulator meets. What's that game like? What's the most common tilty kind of balance game that you've got? It's like where you do a ball around a maze or whatever. You know, Tilt Maze or whatever. Tilt Maze plus Goat Simulator. This is how you come up with ideas for games, right? People say, how do you come up with names for games? What you do is you mix two seemingly There you go. Somebody go do it. My challenge to the community is put together Luke Handwalker using the Gates of Heaven in China and a self-destroying ragdoll.
Well, this is often the way of pitching anything like a new movie or a new game is you say it's a bit like Goat Simulator plus Tile Maze on his hands.
Exactly. Literally turn the idea on its head. See what I did there?
Oh, oh.
I could explain the joke. Sam loves it when I explain jokes.
Go
Perceptual
on, go
lucidity.
for it.
No, I won't. That would be embarrassing and immature. Neither of which I am. Perceptual lucidity game said, I'm curious if you settle on a backing data, maybe back anyway, a data structure for the RPC dialogue system. Oh, no. What I'm going to do is do loads of different data structures, and eventually Sam will tell me which one I should be using. But we started, and we're using a scriptable object, and it's working, Sam. We can now go up to a quest giver. He talks to us, just a lump of dialogue, and it registers a quest in a box on the screen. The architecture sucks, but we have progress. And just like going up a hill, you get yourself to... I'm going to do a thing. Look, here's a thing. Here's a whiteboard. I'm not going to draw anything I shouldn't. Here's the peak of a mountain that you're trying to get to. This is your target, right? And then the hill does all sorts of weird stuff. If you're standing here, your line of sight gets to there. This is the highest thing you can see. You can't even see the peak. There's no chance of planning a route. What you want to do is haul your ass to here, where from this point you might be able to see the route to the peak. So it's a kind of silly little metaphor. But the point is move forward. I'm going to close this immediately, if not before. Or are you going to be good, Sam?
It's just drawing you on your hands at the top of the hill.
Oh, that's okay.
But it's fallen now.
I think we're safe with Sam. It's just there's
Rick
always one particular
careful.
icon that ends up on our Zoom shares. I don't know what it is. Just none of us have grown up.
It's not. None of us have drawn it. It's just Zoom.
It's Zoom. It's a built-in. It's like the carrot secretion gland. Whenever you vomit, it doesn't matter how long it is since you ate carrots in your whole life. There are always carrots in vomit. It's like that. There's always certain symbols in all our Zoom chats. So no, I have not decided the back-end structure. I thought Unity 2018.2 was already out, but thanks for letting us know. I'm waiting for 0.3 because that's supposed to have the nested prefabs. Somebody who's...
At last.
Anybody want to have a go at pronouncing this one?
Which one's this?
The one I'm highlighting on the stream, under Keith SCH, under the Unity 2018.
Except you're not sharing your screen, so...
Well, Twitch is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do I have a course related to particles? How to draw required sprites? You know what? Rick does a pretty good, not drawing the sprites, but even without drawing custom sprites, Rick does a pretty good job of customizing up particles in the Unity 3D course. I would go there in Argon Assault and stuff like that. And also we'll start to do more in the 2D. Rick's a particle ninja. Avi almost has a handlebar moustache. Go for it. If you can get it visible from both sides, you take a photo from behind. If we want both sides of your moustache, you get a free course. That's fair, isn't it? What's that?
I think that's fair.
I think anybody who grows a moustache that can be seen from both sides, without the use of pencils to pull the moustache out, it's not to be allowed to be unfurled, then you get a free course. Because that there is commitment.
Oh, yeah. I did have a great uncle who had a moustache that he hooked behind his ears.
That's ridiculous. Only you could have that. Only you could have that uncle.
Yeah. He was known as Baffy, which literally means, moustache. Whiskers.
Mark, I'd love to know about how the price of adult nappies going up on holiday, how the price of adult nappies is going to go up if you went on holiday where? I've lost track of
He's a bit scared of heights.
I see. Of that staircase. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going
to... Ventura sent a slinky down it, apparently. Oh, we've got to find a video of that. I'm probably not allowed to play it.
Right, I'm going to go dive out, guys.
No worries. And Jason, if you're fed up with our ridiculous... What's that, Sam?
A pleasure meeting you, Jason.
You as well, Sam.
And a usual displeasure with you, Ben.
Yeah, and you. And you coming over tomorrow?
I probably am.
Yeah, okay. So I'll continue the displeasure tomorrow.
See you then.
See you, mate.
And see you guys.
I'm just trying to finish off the chat, then I'll say goodbye to you as well, Jason. Avi, while Ben and Sam ramble on. Somebody said they'd like to listen to us rambling as a podcast. Is that anybody who's present? I can't remember exactly who said it. That's embarrassing and strange.
Only if you get a soundboard and you add that spittoon sound.
It's got to be the spit dink. Oh, look at that, Avi, dude. So I've just that is getting close. My daughter's waving at me at the window. Giving her the 5-minute sign. Guys, you're all awesome. Thank you very much for being here. I'm just going to do the normal tail off. I think, Jason, I'll end the chat here, basically. So thank you for being here. That's cool. And see you on the next one. Get another class reviewed next time, yeah?
All right, sounds great to me.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here. Really, seriously do appreciate it, despite all my sarcasm. All right, cool. So guys, a few things to remember. We have a forum, I think you know that, but just in case. We have a Discord live chat server, I think you know that, but just in case. I'm just like pushing the buttons on my Stream Deck. We have lots of Udemy courses, I think you know that, but just in case. Follow me on Kickstarter, I think you know that, but just in case. What else to say? We also have an events page, which I don't have a shortcut to, but it's just Twitch. GD, these are Twitch events, /events. Have a look at it. I'm going to open the events page because I'm proud of our events page. I feel like I'm a TV station director here. We have actual series of events. Not only have we had lots of past events already on Twitch, but we have a whole bunch of future events, which is awesome. Now, I just want to say a couple of things about Twitch. Firstly, please follow us because that helps. And please do consider subscribing at the highest level you can. That really helps us. The final thing to say is, why are we doing so much Twitch suddenly? Well, if you think about the amount of course, if we look at the average amount of course hours we produce in a year, it's about 50 per person. It's about an hour a week. What on earth are we doing the rest of the time? Well, the rest of the time we're agonizing over how to make your courses. That's all we do. We either make the courses or we agonize over how to make the courses. We spend hours discussing code and standards and architecture and the best ways to do things and the learning journeys and all the rest of it. And what seems to be panning out, what I was hoping for, is if we live stream some of that, we would share more value and make better courses. Now, the risk is you try and chase two rabbits, you catch neither, and you ramble on, like I'm doing now, and you don't make as courses that are as good. But I hope, and what I'm aiming for, is that the courses are better, that we maybe even make more Udemy courses, and that we live stream and add some extra value. So we're not moving from Udemy to Twitch, not at all. Udemy's our prime focus. Everybody's flat out making Udemy courses right now. And this is just a way of getting earlier feedback, of engaging you in the process, of getting some behind the scenes, of adding some more value, because we can't seem to go any faster than an hour a week. I don't know why, it's just that's how carefully, I guess it's not bad. If you think about a film, it's a 2-hour film. It took thousands or tens of thousands of man hours. I guess one man doing an hour a week of end product isn't bad. Feels slow, but we want to lift the veil, as it were, not the shirt, and show you the process behind the scenes. So I'm going to take a last question on here, and I'm going to say goodbye. You guys rock, and we will see you on the next one as per our events page. Yes, and now we agonize on the courses on the live streams. Would you be interested in having maybe once a month stream where you showcase core student projects? I would love that, Tasty Graph. I think that's an awesome idea. We would love to show that, and I will put it on the list. I think that a spit and ding is one of the things I need to do, and another thing is a student showcase stream. Yep, let's do that. That is probably, yeah, it feels slow to me. Maybe I've just got to, normally, and guys, this is probably a useful lesson. Normally, your standard for what you think is needed or right is up here. But what the world demands of you and what is valuable to the world is here. And there's another line, which is what you're actually capable of doing, which is probably a bit below what you think you're capable of doing. So you probably, it doesn't really matter where they go. It doesn't matter whether you are capable of more than you think you are, which is the inspiring way of looking at it, or whether you're realistically capable of less than you think you are. Kind of doesn't matter. So am I capable of doing better or worse streams than I think I'm capable of doing? I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I'm doing better at streaming than I thought I would be. Sometimes it feels like I'm doing a lot worse. Doesn't matter. What matters is that whether your actual ability versus your desired ability is here or here, and which way around that is, don't care. I want you to remember this. This is what the world needs of you. You can still add a lot of value to people with your games, for example, in our specific context by just getting it out there. Yes, your blueprint of what you could do one day is up here, but you will never get your actual ability up unless you put stuff out and get feedback. So just do it and expose yourself to criticism. What's the worst that could happen? So, all right. Thanks a ton for providing such high quality content. You're welcome. I don't think that streams are high quality content, but can't do much better live when we're trying to direct, produce, do everything ourselves live on a home broadband connection. We're doing we're broadcasting to the world and in our bedrooms effectively, which everybody is welcome to do. Of course, it's easier than ever to stand up in this world. It's harder than ever to stand out. Is that true? It might be true. If it was true, clip it. If it was rubbish, just ignore it. But I'll say it again just in case it is true. It's easier than ever to stand up. Anybody can go and grab a cheap webcam or an expensive webcam, and everyone's got a broadband connection. Not everyone, all the lucky people. And anyone can stand up and talk and have a voice. It's harder than ever to stand out. And I think the way you're going to stand out is by being more and more yourself. Just be you and instead of competing against other people, There's one thing that you can definitely do better than anybody else, which is be 100% yourself. The difficulty is peeling off all the layers of bullshit for all the people that have said, got expectations you've got to meet, to meet the expectations of your parents or your teachers or your friends or whatever. Strip all that away, be you, and then it's fairly effortless to do well because you're the only you. So find your voice is what I'm saying. This is my intelligent face. All right, I'm going to go. Did I say I hope I did not say the BS word. I probably did. Sometimes I will use pointed language like that, and I'm not going to use too much, and I don't think it's enough. Do you think it's enough for me to mark the way that I speak is enough to me for mark this stream as needing to be a mature audience stream? Could you just let me know in the chat? Yes, no. So mature or not mature would be the chat thing. I won't bother with the poll right now. I don't think I do. I typically try and use it for emphasis or sometimes to jolt people into action, a bit like Tony Robbins would do. No, but in seriousness, we don't want to upset any kids, right? I want 7-year-olds to 70-year-olds, or 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds to be able to take this stream. I would say that in front of my kids, but it's not my choice as to whether I say it in front of your kids. So if at any point you think I should move this to a mature channel, talking about being ourselves, I would rather click the button on Twitch that says that this is a mature channel and you have to click the button, you have to opt in, than I would have to put too much of a front on. So we'll feel that out. The moment you think we need to go to a mature channel, I'd rather do that. But for the moment, I think we're good. So, all right. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate everything. You're all awesome. The highest consistent viewing numbers of any stream. I'm sure that Mikey will be beating all of our viewing numbers when he comes on because he's talking about sexy stuff like art and he's a bubbly personality. So we're going to be hosting Mikey on, I think, Tuesdays, but check the events log. And I will see you later. You guys all rock. No, it's you that rock. I'm just trying to help here, but you guys rock because without you, I'd be standing here very lonely talking to absolutely nobody, which would be kind of sad. But I'd probably still do it, and that's the sign that that you love what you're doing. Is you'd probably do it if nobody's listening. But you wouldn't get any good at it if nobody's listening. If nobody's playing your games, you're not really getting the critical feedback because we all don't put our work out there in case somebody criticizes it. But you know what? It's always the criticism is what you need. It's what makes you stronger. On the Unity Kickstarter, please guys, look at this, KS Unity, all right? In that video, which was made with a C920 webcam in me in my bedroom when I had some hair with Bree sitting next to me, I go, guys, we're going to C++ rather than JavaScript. Watch the video. You won't believe it. Wrong language. No, and we said it ran the other way. We said we're going to teach you in JavaScript rather than that nasty C++. I think that's what I said. Firstly, it's Unity script. Secondly, they were going to deprecate it. Thirdly, it's C#, not C++. What on earth? I got huge kickback and feedback from the indie game developers group on Facebook. And they said I was this and that and that. And I took every single item of criticism. I said, thank you, you're right. I'm going to change my plans, and I totally changed my plans, and that feedback shaped things. When we put the Godot course out there, Lars, one of the most knowledgeable people in the community, started looking at some of our early code and said, guys, that code looks like you don't know what you're doing. I said, thank you, Lars, what about it? We went and spoke to him. He was incredibly awesome on the phone. He realized our intention was to do this right and to listen to feedback. But you won't improve unless you put yourself out there. Nobody would have told us that the way that we're doing some of our Godot code could be better unless we'd have put ourselves out there in the public eye. So you only get the feedback you need, not necessarily the feedback you want, but the feedback you need when you open yourself up like Jason did earlier. Jason, you're a star, and that's when you get back the feedback you need. All right, guys, I'm going to go now. You're all awesome. I'll see you soon. I'm going to push the button and see my family. Bye.